Welcome to this video on tides and tidal streams. Whether you're a sailor, navigator, or just someone curious about the ocean's rhythms, this guide will give you a detailed understanding of what tides are, how they work, and how to use tidal information effectively. Let's dive in. What are tides? Tides are the predictable rise and fall of sea levels caused by the gravitational forces between the Earth, Moon, and Sun. But how does this work? Picture this. The Moon's gravity pulls on the Earth. This force creates two bulges of water, one on the side of the Earth facing the Moon and one on the opposite side. As the Earth rotates, these bulges move across its surface, creating what we experience as high tides. The areas between these bulges, that's where we get low tides. Now, the Sun plays a supporting role. Its gravitational pull is weaker than the Moon's because it's much farther away, but it still contributes. When the Sun and Moon align, their combined forces create the biggest tides. These are called spring tides. We'll explain this in more detail shortly. Tides are also shaped by geography. Coastlines, seabeds, and local features can distort the timing and size of tides. This is why tides vary so much around the world. Types of tidal patterns. Let's look at the different tidal patterns. Depending on where you are in the world, the tides may behave differently. Daily tides. Most places experience a semi-diurnal tidal pattern. This means 2 high tides and 2 low tides each day. For example, if you're sailing off the UK coast, you'll see this predictable pattern almost every day. However, some regions only have 1 high tide and 1 low tide daily. This is called a diurnal pattern and can happen in areas like the Gulf of Mexico. Half-monthly tides. Spring tides occur when the Sun, Moon, and Earth align during full and new moons. This alignment amplifies the gravitational pull, leading to larger tidal ranges, higher high tides, and lower low tides. For example, imagine you're in Plymouth. During a spring tide, the water may rise several meters higher than during normal tides. Neap tides happen when the Sun and Moon are at right angles to each other during the first and third quarters of the moon. Their gravitational forces partially cancel out, leading to smaller tidal ranges. In the same location, Plymouth, the difference between high and low water might only be a couple of meters during neap tides. Using tide tables. Now that we understand tides, let's learn how to predict them using tide tables. Tide tables provide the predicted times and heights of high and low water at key locations, known as standard ports. For instance, in this example, the tide table corresponds to a specific standard port. At 2:44 p.m., the tide will reach its lowest point, with a height of 1.5 meters. After that, the tide will begin to rise again, following its natural cycle. Secondary ports. For smaller ports near standard ports, dedicated tide tables may not be available. However, you can determine tide predictions by applying adjustments to the tide table of the nearest standard port. Each secondary port has specific adjustment values for both time and height, allowing you to tailor the standard port's predictions to the conditions at your desired location. The rule of twelfths. Let's talk about a simple method for estimating tidal heights between high and low water, the rule of twelfths. Here's how it works. In the first hour after high or low water, the tide rises or falls 1/12 of the total range. In the second hour, it's 2/12. In the third hour, it's 3/12, and then the cycle reverses. For example, imagine the range between high and low water is 6 meters. If it's the second hour after low water, the tide will have risen 2/12, or 1 meter. Add this to the low water height to calculate the current depth. This method is great for quick estimates, but becomes less accurate in areas with irregular tidal patterns. Tidal streams. Tides don't just move vertically, they also create horizontal water movement called tidal streams. These are critical for navigation. Tidal diamonds. Found on nautical charts, tidal diamonds give information about tidal streams, including their direction and speed. For example, if you see a diamond labelled P, it might show a tidal stream flowing northwest at 1.5 knots during spring tides. Tidal stream atlases. These are visual tools that show tidal stream directions as arrows on maps. Thicker arrows indicate stronger currents, while thinner arrows show weaker ones. If you're crossing a channel, knowing these streams can save fuel and time. Meteorological factors. Tides aren't only affected by celestial mechanics. Weather plays a big role too. Barometric pressure. High pressure pushes the sea level down, while low pressure lifts it. A 10 millibar change in pressure can result in a 10 centimeter sea level change. Wind. Onshore winds can pile water against the coast, making high tides higher than predicted. Always check the weather forecast along with your tide tables. Practical navigation tips. Always double-check your calculations when using tide tables and graphs. Use prediction software for real-time and more accurate data. Remember to account for time zones and daylight savings when planning. To wrap up, tides are the predictable rise and fall of sea levels, influenced by the moon, sun, and local geography. Spring tides bring the largest tidal ranges, while neap tides bring the smallest. Tide tables, tidal diamonds, and stream atlases are invaluable tools for navigation. Don't forget to consider weather effects and always plan ahead. By mastering these concepts, you'll be well prepared to handle any tidal conditions. Whether you're a sailor planning a passage, a navigator crossing a channel, or someone simply exploring the coastline. If you liked this video, make sure to click subscribe and check out the other videos in the series for a complete understanding of navigating the seas.